Yo, what's going on, boys? It's your man back for another Marvel Select review. It's like my channel is becoming a Marvel Select channel, but no, it's not. Today, we do have the Disney Store exclusive, once again, Taskmaster. Now, this figure is great. I'm loving it. Definitely the look, they went perfect on with the new Taskmaster run, that the 5-issue run they just released. I feel like this look is literally perfectly that. So we'll start with the box, which I don't have. It's same window packaging as the last Marvel Select box and the one before that and the one before that, and I'm pretty sure literally every Marvel Select ever. So now that we got that out of the way, we can bring this guy in for the paint and sculpt. Now I think the paint and sculpting on this figure is some of the best from Marvel Select. Not the best, I don't think the best, and there is a lot of competition for the best, but this is good. I think the cape looks great. It's got a nice flowing look to it. And the way they made it is so that it's not low enough where it cuts off at the bottom of the feet, like the feet touch the ground before the cape does, which is a problem I have with so many capes, is the company doesn't understand that the feet of the figure need to touch the ground, not the cape. But other than that, you can see all the high detail on the belts, the gloves, all his many weapons and stuff. And he comes with a lot of stuff. So let's get right into it. On articulation for this guy, I think it's pretty decent. Now this head sculpt is pretty terrible for articulation because it doesn't stay on all the way. So we're going to be switching this up, and I'm going to go for accessories first. So first accessory, we'll bring it in a nice little close-up on the skull head. Get the light so you can see in there. There it is. I think this head looks very good for the skull mask. It's a little goofy. I feel like there's just something about it that makes it look a little weird. But other than that, I think the head sculpt is great. And the problem with mine is, I don't know if it's just mine or if all of them are like that, but this little piece right here, let me put the light down. This little opening here isn't wide enough, so I can't get the ball joint into the head when I put it on. But that's not to worry about, because he does have an interchangeable head, and this is the head I prefer. It's the Ultimate Taskmaster head with the more of a metal suit or metal helmet instead of a skull mask. And I think the head, that is the paint and sculpt and the design on this one, is just great. I love the silver paint that was in those grooves, and the eyes look great. Now, this head goes on much better than the other one. There you go. Nice and on, I think tight. Just one more check. Perfect. And I think that head looks great on him. And that's the head I will be sticking with. But for now, we will go over the rest of the accessories. So, he comes with, for weapons starting it, he comes with his bow here with an actual string, which looks great. There's a lot of nice detail on the bow, and the paint looks great. And it's a nice enough plastic where you could have him drawing the string in a pose. And I've had him doing it, and it looks really, really good. And to go with the bow, there are 3 arrows. So the arrow right here, this one is from the comic books. I'm pretty sure one of these, this might be explosive. This is the explosive arrow right here. And then he comes with one that has something in it to beat Hyperion, which I'm pretty sure is this one. They all have the same end. It's that orange little, whatever you'd call that. The word is not coming to me. But they're all made of this nice plastic. They won't break or anything. And the paint and detail on them is still pretty good. And then there's just a nice pointy, sharp, regular arrow. And I've tried it many times. You can actually shoot the bow. I will not be shooting it here because I don't want to lose an arrow, but you can just, you draw it back, pow, arrow goes flying. Now, to go along with this bow, he has an interchangeable hand that is made that you can have him holding the bow and drawing the strings back with this hand. And these pieces all fit together nice, and I'll show it here with the figure. They interchange easily. You just pull it straight out, and you just put this one right in. Ooh. And there you go, it's nice and on him. Now, the only problem with this is I kind of don't like when companies give you a hand, but only for one side, because I feel like if we had this hand for both sides, it would make it a lot better for angles. Like you would have him pulling back the bow with the other hand and shooting it, or him just here shooting with the other hand, which that's the one problem I have. But other than that, it's great we got a hand to do this, because other companies will just leave you with either a bow that you can't pull back or no hands to do it. It's just not good. I commend Marvel Select for doing it for us. So going on from the bow, moving to the next accessory, comes with the iconic sword. And I really like the paint on this sword. The only problem is I got a bad one in the way. Don't know if you can see it, but the paint isn't the best on the blade. They're all scuffs. Yeah, you can see it there. You can start seeing the scuffs and scratches. And it came out of the box like this, and I'm not sure if it's supposed to be beaten up or if it's supposed to be mint, and mine just came bad. But other than that, the paint is great. The detail looks really good, and I'm really a fan of the sword. They made it nice and sturdy too, like it's a stiff plastic, because swords that are all flimsy, I hate them. So to go along with his sword, comes with his iconic Taskmaster Shield. This shield also looks great. The shiny plastics they put on these just look, or the shiny metals they use, or the shiny paint they use just looks great on all of these. It's like a gunmetal, I guess you could say. It looks really good. The only problem is, again, it came a little scuffed up, which maybe the product or the quality control isn't the best on this because it's a Disney Store exclusive, but I'm not sure. And the shield, it has one really big strap and one medium one right here. You can just put the arm in. I have him with this hand. I either have him holding this part, or you can just have his hand in there. And it works really good, and it goes on very easily. Very great. Alright, so moving on to his last accessory. Of course, the classic pistol. Now, this one looks really good, and the paint is really good. And it's actually fits in his hand pretty perfectly. I'll demonstrate again with this hand. I think the easiness, I guess you would say, of all the interchangeability of the accessories is part of what makes this figure so good. Because when you go to use a figure, or I guess play, you can just say play with a figure. I hate when you want to get them in a certain pose or put them with a certain accessory, and it's just a wrestling match to get it on. I hate that. But this guy does not have that problem. Now, going into articulation. At the head here, trying to bend him down a little bit. At the head here, he looks up, not very much. Looks down, not very much. Facing on front here, there is not a lot of pivot, but you get your rotation. I'm guessing a lot of the head articulation is inhibited by this hood, and the hood is not very easy to work around, especially with the Marvel Select joints, which are very tight and hard to loosen up. It could be tough moving the head, so I'd say be careful with that. But moving on now, at the shoulder here, it goes up, not very far. There is, of course, all the way around. You just got to go around the cape, which you be careful with. You don't want to scuff up the white. At the bicep here, there is this kind of bicep swivel, which cuts into the bicep instead of being at the top near the shoulder. And this is probably the worst part of the figure, because this looks awful. Like, you cannot pose the figure with this bicep swivel and make it look decent at all, because even just a little bit of movement makes it look off and like he's breaking his arm or something. I don't even know. So now at the elbow here, there is a single jointed elbow, which this is the one thing too. The arms are probably the worst articulated part of the figure, because it could use so much more articulation for like bow poses, using the sword and the shield. And that's the one problem, is these arms, their articulation is pretty bad. But there's only a single jointed elbow, does not too bad. Then at the hands, there's a hinge with a swivel, but instead of being forward and out, it's up and down, which I kind of don't like, because for a lot of poses with this guy, I'd rather have the side to side, like getting him holding the bow. It would be better off having if the hand went down instead of up and down. But for gun poses, it's a lot better to have up and down. So I guess you either got to pick one or the other. And I would rather have the bow poses. So at the diaphragm here, he crunches in pretty decently. Let me move the arm out of the way. He crunches in pretty decently. He goes back pretty decently. And all this stuff, the surprising amount of stuff he has on him, none of it really inhibits the articulation, which is great. And then here is where you get your swivel, and there is all movement on this one. It's a nice double ball joint, I'm guessing, because the articulation is just great. And here at the legs, I guess it feels more like the plastic of this sheath here. It's moldable enough where you can just push it out of the way and still get perfect leg articulation. You can see it goes forward that far, back a little bit, out to the side even, not get interrupted at all by the sheath or thing of the sword here. Then at the thigh here, he's got a thigh cut, which also looks a little weird. Another weird place to put a cut. I don't think they've chosen the best spots to cut into the figure here, but it all works pretty well. Double jointed knee also works pretty decently. Kind of hard to show with all this stuff just dangling in the way. Then at the boot, there is a nice little swivel here. Then at the feet, there's a hinge, move forward, and back. And then of course, Marvel Select has to have the nice swivel now. Great job, Marvel Select. See, now the articulation and accessories on this guy definitely make it worth the money, because this guy is a little bit harder to find, and if you can't find him for retail, which is like 35 or 40, you got to pay 60, 70, because just for the shipping on the size of the box, it is bad, and it makes it a lot more expensive. So, let me make sure. I got to set myself here because I'm out of order. Now we got to do some comparisons for this guy. So, standing him up nice and tall. We'll bring in some other Marvel Select figures. We'll bring in Carnage here. Wow, these guys are too big. Gotta back it up and zoom it out a little bit. But Marvel Select Carnage. Then we got Venom again too. And these guys, it's like I said in the Spider-Man video, I think all Marvel Select figures kind of have a look to them, and they all just look great next to each other. The only problem is that Venom is definitely not the best figure. Definitely needs some updating. If Marvel Select could, they should release a new Venom. That'd be definitely great. So, moving these guys out of the way. Getting some other comparisons in here. We'll bring the other two Taskmaster figures I have to compare him to. The Marvel Legends, who just took a dump there. We'll just leave the shield out of his hand. So the Marvel Legends and the Marvel Legends. So for comic Taskmaster, I definitely think the Select wins against this Marvel Legends one. I've had this Marvel Legends figure for a long time, and I'm not very fond of it, especially compared to the Select now. And the movie one, I'm really not a fan of the figure, and I'm not sure where they're going with the character in the movie, because in the comic books, Taskmaster is really like a cheesy comedian guy. Like, he's kind of like Deadpool, but I think he was here before Deadpool. Fun fact. All you Deadpool fans, I actually don't even know. Might be wrong, might be right. But he's like a Deadpool character. He's a comedian. He's his skills, he's a weird, goofy guy, but I don't know if the movie's gonna do that. And I don't even like the movie design. I feel like it strays way too far from the comics to make it look good. And I feel like they did a weird job with it. But even all together, I think this Marvel Select Taskmaster is the best Taskmaster figure you can get for price, because he's actually even almost the same price as to get this Marvel Legends one, the comic one. But for price, availability, probably not. Well, probably the same. And even like accessories, sculpt, paint, I think everything is better on the Marvel Legend or Marvel Select. Oof, Marvel Select, not Marvel Legends. Now for some just like random comparisons at the end here. Got the man Thanos, obviously a classic. And we'll bring in another classic, the man Lefty. And I think this too is where this figure shines again. Is even on just a random display, he sticks out. Like he'll make himself known on the display. You'll see him, you'll be like, wow, what a woo. Great figure. Now, getting these guys out of the way, and for some final thoughts, pretty much already said it, but just one more time, just to make sure. This Taskmaster is great. 100% recommend this figure if you can get it, and especially if you're a Taskmaster fan. And if you're not, I recommend reading the most recent 5-issue run that just came out for Taskmaster. Great story, great issue, great story run. So, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been the Select Taskmaster. Very excited for this figure. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye.